So the next speaker is a little bit different from the other from those two previous speakers in different ways. Firstly, he is an active developer, right? So he will be talking about the actual code, and he represents AgileByExample trying to bring Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, and developers together. The other different him personally before the conference, so I asked him, how should I introduce Łukasz? And it seems Łukasz is very precise and very economical in terms of words. And so I looked at his bio at the AgileByExample page, and it's the shortest bio I ever seen. But eventually I find out that he also expressed himself as a drummer. So you can find his SoundCloud page with some of his recordings. What is important is that he's passionate about software engineering. And today we will be talking about try. So don't repeat yourself. And most developers are taught this, that this is the most important rule. And Łukasz believes it also, but he knows that it can be misunderstood. And when it is misunderstood, it can cause very much lots of harm. So Łukasz will show you why it is okay to get wet. So Łukasz, make us wet, please. The stage is yours.
Okay, hello. So this is talk, don't be afraid to get wet. Why dry is not the best idea. I have only 15 minutes, so I'll keep it short. If you have any additional questions afterwards, or if you want to just talk about it, I will also leave my contact details. So, hello. Hello, as I said, I'm a working developer, and I'm currently leading a small team at BlockFi. I'm still writing code, but there is less and less of that. As Mateusz said, I'm a drummer and a music producer. And during my career, I've seen some eldritch horrors in code and fought some dragons, which I also like to talk about. So also in the spirit of this conference, this talk is not only for developers, because what I hope what you'll get from this talk is you will understand why don't repeat yourself can be a problem. You understand how to work with rules in software space, so a bit more general, a bit more abstract. And maybe you'll get some tools to efficiently address problems before they actually grow. One important caveat, this is not a talk about fighting dragons. I know those are flashy, nice to listen, and big epic fails are always a nice thing on conferences. This one is not about fighting dragon. This is about rather large ugly lizard, which quite ironically is the only dragon we have on this planet. And why is that? So code started pretty. It was really nice, and we will be back to it. Because of try, it turned ugly, and mostly only because of try. So this is quite isolated example. And the last, most important, I'm the one of the culprits. I co-wrote this code and made it ugly. So yeah, let's start maybe with laying some foundation. So what is try? As Mateusz said, it's don't repeat yourself. So it's also being said as don't write duplicate code. People say if you're not dry, then you're wet. So you're wasting everyone's time. It's the one of the first and most important rules that we learn as junior developers. And yeah, that's basically it. There is no much depth to what we learn. So let's change pace. Time for some philosophy. Let's talk about rocks. So imagine you have a rock on the ground, and you add another one, and you add another one. And you continue the process, and you don't know when you'll have a pile of rocks. When did the countable rocks become pile of rocks? Was it at 10? Was it at 20? It's really hard to tell. At some unspecified point in time, some number of rocks become pile of rocks. And now someone at the audience can say, hey, but what it has to do with software? And I hear you, and let me explain. You see, I believe there are almost no evil, malicious developers like this one. There are good-natured folks who are human. Humans make mistakes, and what's important, there are obviously some huge mistakes and things that will break your code, but a lot of the time there will be small changes that doesn't seem to be that bad. That will make code way worse when they pile up. So you add some small insignificant changes, and you'll not notice when you end up with pile of rocks and terrible project. Someone else at the audience could say, "No, that's why we have rules." And I hear you, but there are some problems with rules. Our brains like to conserve energy, so it's way easier just to memorize rule without understanding it. It's a very, very easy trap to fall into. And I'll have one example for you. And I'll be back to it as well, because I fell into the trap as well. So those of you who are Rubyist know Sandy Metz. She's well known and respected developer within the Ruby world. And she came up with 5 lines rule. This is more, this rule specifies that you should always aim to have a method that's at most 5 lines, or do what you can to go there. You can split methods, and usually you can split methods and so on. It's a great habit to have to keep your methods small. And obviously there are times you need to break the rule. Some folks make static analysis rule check. So the project didn't compile if it had more than 5 lines per method, which caused folks ignoring this rule altogether or doing some detailed workarounds. And it happened just because the rule was memorized and enforced and understood. Let's address the lizard in the room. So let me talk about the project that got dirty. We were building simple notification service. We had 2 destinations, which were systems, not recipients. We put it into one class. We didn't want to duplicate code, and it looked really similar. So what's the harm? And it was really small, clean method, one innocent if statement. If statements are not bad, but we can talk about them way later after the talk. It was beautiful. Everyone liked to work with it. It was great. Then something happened. There were changes enforced by destinations. Each change was like this rock added to some other rocks. I don't know how much it took. I would guess like 2 months, but it's a rough ballpark. But we had a pile of rocks. The small nice method that everyone loved became hideous, over 200 lines of codes, complex logic, sea of if statements. So basically, like, no one really wanted to touch it, and everyone who had to do any change, like, was really disgusted and didn't want to do anything, and all changes were making exponentially longer. And this is a short story how from a really beautiful duckling we went to ugly lizard. So you might be asking why it was try that made it worse. So we wanted no duplicate code, but we didn't stop to ask ourselves what actually is a duplicate code. And this is a question that's really good to ask, because there are some obvious answers. So for example, there's the same structure. The code looks the same or is the same. Maybe for the same inputs, you get the same outputs. Maybe that's the duplicate code. You see, nothing exists in void. And while we may be doing some coding challenges for some exercism or whatever, when we work, we actually work with some real world stuff. So each code piece, be it module, class, method, whatever, it serves some specific business case. So if we have the same business case that's being taken care of 2 pieces of code in the same way, then it means those are duplicates. And of course, you can make business cases big or small. Let's just assume that we are doing as small business cases as possible here. On the other hand, if we had 2 pieces of code that look really alike or are even identical down to character, but serve different business cases, those are not duplicates. So how it happened, the transformation from beautiful duckling to ugly lizard? We actually had 2 business cases and code that looked alike for both of them. If you remember, I said it started with one if statement. That was the only difference in both flows for both business cases at the start. And we didn't notice that we have 2 business cases. It looked like notification, hey, notification, that's one thing, right? So we wrote a single piece of code to take care of that. In our case, that was a class and a method, but whatever language you're writing, whatever piece of code for you means. Then, over time, business cases started drifting apart. And code became a mess because we were adding small innocent changes that piled up. And we were way too focused on try that we missed that, simple as that. So one most important slide from this is one business case equals one piece of code. And this is also not a strict rule. There are some situations when you can break the rule. What's important is to understand it. And what's funny is I heard about that before doing the notification service. It just didn't strike me that try can be a problem here. Only thinking later about why it went so wrong, I connected the dots and made a clear understanding that we were not duplicating code. We would be not duplicating code if you wrote 2 classes for that. So before you go try, make sure that code is really a duplicate. If it looks the same, it doesn't really justify you like making it common. And just because business cases are really similar, it doesn't mean they will always look like this. Business cases are really changing rapidly and can drift apart, especially when you have different stakeholders for each of different features that may start really similar. They will look nothing alike in a few months. I guarantee you that. Remember, don't be afraid to write identical code twice if there's a need. It's way better to write the same code twice and then not having to do a complex logic or costly refactoring. So if one business case changes, you don't need to disrupt the flow of the second one. And communicate clearly to your team why there is a code that looks the same. Link maybe some Jira tickets if you're using Jira. Explain broader context. As I said, code doesn't exist in void. There's always a business reason why we're writing this code. It's not just kata or exercise that we're doing for fun or to polish our skills. We're trying to solve a real problem, and our code should do something to make, for example, our product work better or whatever the reason is. And this is it. Here are my contact info if you want to ping me please do. I really like talking about software, and it was really hard to not make a talk that's for like a few hours long of me rambling about stuff. So any questions that won't fit Q&A session, you can easily send me on any of those places.
Thank you, Łukasz, for showing us to your lizard. Please, people, please, if you have any questions, write them down in the main yellow channel. And in the meantime, a question from me. Actually, the stuff you talk about is rarely mentioned by Agile people, right? Do you have an advice how we could engage in this kind of situation so it's natural?
Yeah, so if I understood the question correctly, so for example, you have a Scrum Master who notices a problem and wants to communicate with developers. So for example, if you make retro and developers are saying that, hey, this takes too much time, this code is terrible, maybe don't go to them and say, hey, here's the solution, but start conversation, start asking questions, go Socrates style, direct them to so they will answer what you would like to tell them. So it's not like you you go there and show them the way, because developers will never listen. But if you start conversation and digging deeper, trying to understand what happened, showing some possible maybe solutions and so on, it could make it work.
Okay, thank you very much. I see somebody is writing a question on the Slack channel, but I'm not sure what. Well, if the person will finish in a moment.
Yeah, let me add quickly to answer. I never had a situation when Agile people had to step in and like propose some solutions, because we were always in a team really proactive about that and solving problems. So this is a really foreign case for me. But yeah, definitely don't give answers. Try to make people answer for themselves. This is way better. So they will actually understand, because if you give them an answer, they will just memorize it and whatever. If you make them understand what's wrong, they will be far better off with the thing.
What I meant is that the way I see the current state of Agile world, that mostly Agile people care about the process and not about. So it's hard for us to notice that the problem is with some code duplication. And when developers talk about this, most Agile people I know just shut off and think about the different stuff.
Yeah, so I would advise more curiosity in this space. So yeah, I always try to understand the domain and stuff that other people's doing, so we can communicate way easier when working together. And I know it takes time from the fun stuff that you're doing, but it pays off, really.
Thank you. We have a question. So thank you, Piotr, for the question. Like this. Any idea how to make a self-check to figure out if we're following rules without thinking? Ideally before it's too late. Trick one.
Yeah, I think this is a good question.
It's awesome.
Asking yourself, yeah, asking yourself why am I doing this? Why am I following this particular rule? Why it fits here? And start doubting if that's the best solution. You probably won't find any against, or there will be really, really weak. But if you start doubting yourself and asking, why am I doing this? But maybe that's the only rule I know, then you start to notice that there are some problems with the flow process or the things that you're doing. So doubt yourself in a good way. That would be my my answer here. A quick self-check. Just ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this a force of habit, or is this actually a best solution to the problem at hand?
Thank you. I have another question. I know we are over time, but the question looks really good. So let me show the first half of it because it's long. Oh, it's too long. Okay, so let me show the first part. Don't you have a feeling that for quite large group of engineers, some principles are sacred? In a way, they do not discuss them. They just follow. How to change mindset so that people are would be more aware of other options? How to lead teams into that direction?
Oh, another good one. So
thank you, Luke.
I guess like educating, showing you can do something that improves yourself. You can talk about the change and actually show some reasoning about for that. In one team, we had a morning ritual when we were drinking coffee and talking about some PRs that were being merged, and it was a good way to spread some good practices. Again, questioning why, trying to you can ask someone else, why did you do that way, and start actually getting deep, not being satisfied with first answer. Is that something that you always do without thinking, or have you thought about some other possible solutions without being aggressive? Of course, the more you talk and understand other people, the way easier it is to actually show your point. So if you go with some just facts and logic saying, hey, that's wrong, here how you're good, how you do good, then other folks will just feel attacked and will go deeper into what they actually are doing right now and won't hear any of your arguments. If you show some common connection, understanding, and show your point of view, then you have a way better chance of actually getting to someone. So don't go with just facts saying, hey, that's good, that's bad, here are my arguments why you're wrong. Just try to start a conversation, try to understand why someone is doing that way, present your point of view, not as a fact, just, hey, here's what I would do or whatever.
Okay, perfect. So again, curiosity and not attacking people are the key, right? Okay, Łukasz, thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can discuss more in the channel. I just pasted in the Slack. Let me applaud you, Łukasz. Thank you very much for this talk.
It's been a pleasure.